We'll fix that, everybody. I think you can hear me now. Yeah, you can. Sorry about that. I think you got me now, right? How about now? Do you have me on audio now? Wait for somebody in the chat room to tell me that they have audio. Yes? Yes. Okay, here we go. The Utah Jazz win their 13th of their last 14 games in a game that probably set basketball back 20 years. 61 two-point shots were taken. Non-restricted area twos were taken this game. But the important one is the Jazz got blown out of the way they want to play by Atlanta's defense, and they still had an answer. And it wasn't Donovan Mitchell going crazy. The Jazz, yet again, show dominance, blow out another opponent, and win. We're talking about it coming up on Postcast. Hi, I'm David Locke. This is Postcast immediately after every game live at Locked On Live, also live on YouTube at Locked On Live, Facebook, and Twitch. And I'm coming to you live at DLock09 on Twitter. Thanks very much for tuning in. The Atlanta Hawks tonight came out and said, all right, you're not shooting threes. We're not going to give you threes. They hugged the three-point shooters. They played the pick and roll. They played the pick and roll with two guys and forced Rudy to try to make plays, tried to make the ball handle make plays, and the Jazz really scuffled. They had an 85 offensive rating in the first quarter. They had a 92 offensive rating in the first half. The league average is about 110. The Jazz come in at about a 118. I mean, these numbers are crazy low. But then in the third quarter, the Jazz score 35 points as Mike Conley, who had foul trouble in the first half, comes back into the ball game. Pick and roll Gobert, slices up the Atlanta Hawks in every way imaginable in that third quarter. The Jazz then have the answer in the fourth quarter. The Jazz end up scoring 67 second quarter points as they just wear down the shorthanded Atlanta Hawks and finally get an answer. I do think the script has now been written on how teams are going to play the Jazz. You just can't let the Jazz take 43s. You can't let them make 20. It's a math problem. There's no way you can overcome it. And we're going to see what happened tonight from everyone. They literally hugged the shooters and then forced the Jazz to play a two-man game. The adjustment the Jazz made that was really interesting was instead of playing the pick and roll from the top with a shooter in each corner, the Jazz natural spacing is a player in each corner with one guy lifted on the weak side. So the weak side's got two guys, and then you play the pick and roll, usually with Rudy rolling, the ball handler coming down the middle, and if they're going to help Rudy, they've got to come off the strong side corner, which nobody wants to do, and so you whip the pass out to the corner three. The Jazz have had double-digit corner three attempts in 13 of the last 14 games. Tonight, they got two corner three attempts, maybe four by the end of the night because of Mia One and Jarrell Brantley. So two in the course of the game, four for the whole night. Why? Because Atlanta said, we're not leaving anyone. So Atlanta just hugged the shooters. So the Jazz made an adjustment. The Jazz moved the pick and roll off to the right side of the floor predominantly. That allowed either the ball handler to come down the wing with Rudy rolling the middle and no help coming because three shooters were on the other side, or they brought it the other way with the pick and roll going down to the middle of the floor, and the three shooters are right there. I mean, that's the easiest pass in basketball. Mike Conley comes down the middle of the lane. Rudy's rolling on the open side down that right side of the floor. There's three shooters on that side. You leave any of them, Mike can see you. He just hits any of them. And they didn't leave any of them. So now Mike's going to work in the third quarter. What the lesson here is there's two lessons here. One is no matter what you're right now throwing at the Jazz, they have an answer. It took them a little while tonight. It took them to have a 67-point second half after scoring 45 points in the first half. That it took them a little bit to figure that out. The other one, frankly, is that Donovan Mitchell has got to learn how to do this. When we're seeing these unique looks right now, Donovan is not reading and reacting them nearly as well as he needs to. The difference between the 13-year veteran Mike Conley in that third quarter compared to Donovan Mitchell in like his second year as a point guard in that second quarter was so abundantly obvious. And the fact is that when Joe Ingles and Donovan Mitchell have been on the floor together this year without Mike Conley, the Jazz are negative. That's maybe a little hurdle that we need to keep an eye on. The Jazz came into this game -5 per 100 possessions when Donovan and Joe are on the floor without Conley. Now, they're also without Rudy in that circumstance because Rudy and Mike have been matching almost all the time. Mike got in foul trouble and only played about 8 minutes in the first half, and he was definitely missed. The other side of this is the Jazz defense was unbelievable. Atlanta was missing Trae Young's 27 points and 9 assists. They're missing DeAndre Hunter's 17 points. They're missing Bogdan Bogdanovic's 17 points. So they really did not have anybody that could score. John Collins cannot create. Kevin Huerter's not really a go-to guy. Those were their two best offensive players, and the Jazz just exploited that. Atlanta had the worst offensive first half of any team all season long, so the Jazz really did a nice job with that. This is a really interesting road trip. We've got three teams that are kind of equal records and very different teams. Atlanta was probably the team playing the best but got injured. Indiana's the toughest for us, and Charlotte seems to somehow be winning games that they shouldn't be winning. All right, let's go take your calls. I love it. Big crowd here on what day of the week is it? It's an early, are we a Thursday? Thursday. I don't even know. All right, let's go to this. By the way, a few notes for us. The Jazz have led by 15 or more in over 30% of the minutes this year. They've led by 20 and I think 13 of the 22 games now. They've led for over 40 minutes in 13 of the 22 games now. It's absolutely crazy what some of these numbers are. Michael Hardy says it's February and the Jazz still have the best record in the NBA. That's true. Paul says, few good teams try to find different ways to win. Take note. That is true. Trap Nap says, we're going to chip. He just called a championship for the Utah Jazz. How about that? On Twitch, Mr. Force Baccio. I probably should be careful reading names I don't recognize, for I might say something I don't want to. Like I used to when I called the Pizza Hut when I was a kid, because we all played the same prank when we were 13 years old and had nothing to do, had no driver's license. So we called pizza places and told them to summon our dads, right? You all played that game. Okay. Does this show that this team can win in different ways? Yes. That, more importantly, the offensive rating was 120 by the end of the night. They've had offensive ratings at 120 against about 4 different styles of defense this year. So, yes, that does say something. Alex says, Jordan Clarkson's consistent. Love watching him play. That is true, and maybe the first time that sentence has ever been uttered. Because if there's an absolute essence of Jordan Clarkson's career before this, that was not it. He has found himself here. It's incredible how he and Quinn have connected. It's amazing. His evolution as a shooter, he used to take, I think, something like 21% of his shots as a long-range 2. He's taken 7 all year. Jordan Clarkson is just an amazing basketball player, says Joshua. Love the beanie. You know what you don't want to see is the hair. Just living out of a van. Hi, Whit. How are you? We miss you. Donovan is 6 feet tall, takes more energy for a smaller guy to dominate this league. Give him another week and act like you forgot Spida had a few bad games. Okay, I will. Conley and Clarkson playing huge for the Jazz this year. It's just the amount of different guys they have that can make plays. That's the story here. That's the story. Matt Ingles says, I had trust in Snyder on how to beat that. I would agree. Conley is so important to running our offense. Absolutely, Adam. This team seems to find different ways to win. Is that a sign of an elite team? Everything about this team right now is the sign of an elite team. We'll see. I mean, this next 10 games is 12, 14 games is ridiculous. Clippers back-to-back. Milwaukee's coming in. Philadelphia's coming in. Like the magnitude of teams, we're going to lose some games. I mean, I think in the next 12, if we go 7-5, we should be flying high. There are brutal, brutal games coming up here. So, yeah, but everything about this team shows we're elite. We'll have another next level touch coming up here in a little bit. Johnny says, pretty good sign for Bogey going forward when he can hit only 1 3 and still end up with 23 points. Absolutely, because Ingles got 1 shot tonight. They were not leaving shooters tonight under any circumstance. Earthquake, they weren't leaving shooters. Emergency exits, they were not heading toward at any point. They were hugging shooters all night. So Bogey had to start going to the rim and playing that game. And that's not where he's at his best, but he finished at the rim. It's the 4th straight game he's finished well at the rim. And that's where his shooting percentage goes back up. We struggle against physical teams. Are we going to be able to weather physical teams that are actually good? I don't know if tonight was physical. I mean, are we the best team in the NBA? I mean, that's what you're asking, right? So the Lakers are crazy, huge, and long, and so are the Clippers. And I'm pretty worried what happens to us when everybody on the floor is 6'8" and our 2 guards are 6'1". Okay, there's your one concern you have left. Otherwise, we're great. There is a chance we're like the third or fourth best team in the NBA, and the other three are all in our conference too. So I'll leave it at that. I don't mean to leave it on a negative note. They're great, and we're just blowing people out. Charlotte tomorrow. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. We'll do Locked on Jazz tomorrow.